What is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Laura of Burning Witches. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah, you're welcome. Hi.
Yeah. It's so awesome to have you here. Your new album, The Dark Tower, is absolutely awesome. I can't wait for the rest of the world to hear it. Was the intention of this record to just make a direct continuation to The Witch of the North, or was this meant to almost be like a new beginning for Burning Witches in a way?
No, I mean, it's just a bit heavier. We wanted it to be a bit heavier, but I think for the rest, it's what you're used from us. Definitely also from previous albums. We already had some of this heavier stuff, I think. So, I wouldn't say a new beginning, but that different than the last one. Yeah.
Did you go into the making of this album with the intention to make it a bit heavier, or did it just kind of turn out that way?
Yeah, we all felt like as a band, we just felt like making it a bit heavier. So we chose a cool team to go along with it, and the artwork, everything, just a bit darker, heavier. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think you definitely succeeded in that regard too. And like for people who like when it came to like the making of each song too, when you go from, Rise of the Darkness to, Unleash the Beast, which features Courtney Cox, which I thought was an awesome collaboration with a couple of songs on here. Did the making of every song like play by its own rules in a way, or did was there kind of like a formula that kind of applied to the making of every song?
Um. Well, I guess the formula in part is just Romana. She writes the songs, so she has a good feeling for how to make them in this feeling of a little bit more heaviness. And yeah, I mean it's just like the previous albums. It's still pretty diverse, but in general, it's just a bit more heavy. And I think she kept that in mind, and yeah.
Um,
So the formula I wouldn't say, but yeah, it's
mm.
like that. Yeah.
When you first joined up with Burning Witches, because I believe the Wings of Steel EP was your first time collaborating with the band. So when you joined up with Burning Witches, were you looking at Hexenhammer and the first self-titled record being like, this is how I have to sing, or were you kind of given full range to bring your own mix into Burning Witches?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I have my own sound a bit, but it was also never the idea to go in a different direction. So I knew what I was getting into. I knew what I was, expected to do. But I also knew that I could do that because I liked Judas Priest, and there was a video online from me covering a song, a Touch of Evil. So they were like, yeah, she will fit. So of course, I have a bit of a different voice, but they knew I would fit with the material they had and what they had in mind to make. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you have your own Halford Hart in a way. I think you have your own unique
yeah,
voice in metal in that regard.
yeah. I have different influences, but definitely Rob Halford is definitely one of the influences. Yes.
Yeah. When it
Yeah.
comes to the lyrical aspect of Burning Witches, does a lyrical idea sometimes come before you hear the music, and that can maybe help with the sound of the music in a way, or have you always preferred, excuse me, to have lyrics before any music came into place?
Well, to be honest, I kind of usually always get the music first, but we always decide a bit on, hey, we want it a bit darker. Oh, let's do, this album about Countess Bathory in this case. So Elizabeth Bathory was the first recorded serial killer ever. She lived in 1500s. And yeah, and there are a lot of cool stories about her written, so it's a good source for inspiration. So I basically always start writing down cool things that I want to write about at some point, and in this case also around this theme, right? So if I get a song, then I usually just can have a look in my list of things that I already have written down. If there's not anything that fits, I have to start thinking like, ooh, what now? But there were a lot of things that I knew I wanted to use. So if I get the song, then there's usually a clear direction musically that I can hear, if it should be creepy, or I mean, obviously the ballad sounds like a ballad. I knew this is going to be the ballad. You're not going to write. um I mean, we have the song Evil Witch. I wouldn't write about an evil witch on a ballad, you know what I mean? So At least, I mean, I guess you could if you're creative with it, but
I've heard stranger
it's not
things.
my choice. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah. So yeah. So this is yeah how I usually do it, and um, so do I start with lyrics? I mean, yeah, it's more like I have the ideas, but I will try to find the right song because Romana will write this song. And yeah, I kind of know what I can expect. So I have a list of things that probably will fit, you know. So most of the time it will fit. And there were just a few last songs. And I think this was Unleash the Beast, actually. It was the very last song. It kind of happened spontaneously when I got the song because I didn't really had any subjects left I thought would really fit on that song. So that was a more spontaneous one, but yeah.
because I was wondering, like since you joined up with Burning Witches, with like album titles like The Witch of the North and then like The Dark Tower, it almost, and even with Dance with the Devil, it almost seems like I felt like a lot of world building with it in a way. It almost seemed like every album did sort of tell a story. It made me ask, like, who was the Witch of the North? Was that meant to be like a metaphor for somebody else, or was it a character being portrayed in the album? Is the Dark Tower like a setting in which which all the songs are kind of like revolving around? So I was always wondering if maybe like lyrically, if Burning Witches was almost kind of developing their own little universe within their music.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we do think about the whole uh package, you know, before we start basically a bit. So um yeah, we you know, with the Dark Tower you could kind of imagine a dark tower on the album cover and stuff like that, right? So um you know, gradually it developed a bit like there were stories of people being thrown out of over the castle walls when they were dead, you know, and there would be like a graveyard and maybe dogs would dig up the bodies. Well, we don't have the dogs on the on the album cover, but we have some graves. And yeah, it just started taking more shape. I mean, the first thing we had in mind was a dark tower because Countess Bathory, at some point, when people really had enough of her, is when she actually started also killing or torturing to death basically the daughters of noble women and men because she started a school for them to basically to you know later run their own houses. It was the 1500s, so I know, yeah, she was basically starting that and then also torturing those to death. And then it was when they said, okay, now this has to end finally, and she got locked up in her own home. So in our version of the story, it's the Dark Tower where she gets locked in. So this is why, yeah.
Is there almost like a lot of research that goes involved with the songwriting? Are you looking at maybe like films or literature or any visual art as like a means of like inspiration, and is that like just as much part of the songwriting process?
Yeah, it's part of it, definitely. I googled a lot.
Mm,
So I just read a lot, and I know there are some movies. To be honest, I didn't see them, but I did for fun because I know Venom wrote a song about Countess Battery, so I was just curious how they wrote the song, so I looked that one up. Um, and yeah, I just really read. I actually read a book, but I read a book online and I forgot the title. But that it was actually someone that wrote a whole story around it. So it was kind of cool to just read a little bit here and there to see what people would, you know, what people would come up with around it and to draw inspiration from. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, would you consider Burning Witches albums, especially within the Dark Tower, would you consider it in a way to be a concept album in a way where like Rise of the Darkness is the opening and then I Want to Be Somebody is the overall conclusion in a way? I know you got like the covers on there and whatnot as well, but I still count that as part of the album. So like, is it
Yeah,
almost?
I wouldn't include the covers this much, I think. But yeah, if you look at the general themes, there is like yeah, there's a song that The Lost Souls, for example, is really it is really about yeah, basically the maidens that got murdered and are haunting the castle, you know, and the haunted castle after everything happened. And there's a song about her being locked up after she got locked up. She was alive for 4 years or so, and then she died. So I don't know if they poisoned her to make her go away or disappear. Like I don't know if they is that's why, um, but yeah, that must have been pretty awkward. So there's a song about that, like Heart of Ice is about that. So yeah, it's a concept album with a few extra songs, I guess, on it. I think you should look at it like that.
Yeah, I mean, Shot in the Dark brought new life into that, and I'm so glad you covered that. That was a
Cool.
fantastic rendition.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. Um, do you want the music to be open to interpretation, or do you want to maybe have the listener be just as engaged with the story and the lyricism as the album itself?
I mean, then it would kind of have to be a metal opera, right? If you have like a metal opera, it's usually pretty straightforward and a story. But I think it's still pretty open to interpretation because some of the songs have also for myself multiple interpretations. And I think as a listener, you can probably pick, one or more out of it, whatever applies to you or what you feel connected to. So yeah, I think it's more of an open interpretation still.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned metal opera. Like, if I could see Burning Witches collaborate with Magnus Carlsen or something like that, I think that would be a fantastic way to really expand on the concept and the metaphors as well.
Yeah.
Yep. Is there
Yeah,
ever,
that would be cool.
yeah, has there ever been a time where maybe like your person, because one of my favorite quotes is every painting is a self portrait. So is there a time where maybe your personal life or your own personal experiences are also addressed in the lyricism, or do you try to maybe use Burning Witches as more of an escapism in a way?
I think it's both. I mean, there's little things that I can connect to. I'm not someone that would want to torture anyone, just to be make that clear.
Yeah,
So that's not it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely um, yeah, there's little parts here and there, I think, and there's also let me think. What for me personally fits. Um, well, yeah, I mean the most personal and the most intimate song is the ballad. To be honest, it is also not based. Although it kind of sounds, if you read the lyrics, it kind of like sounds like it's based on fantasy, and that's what I like about it. It's actually not because it's about a friend of mine that he just basically struggled his whole life to feel like he fits in and to have a good time in his life. It was just a bit difficult for different for several reasons, and um, yeah, he still has this problem. So he just decided he wants to live on the streets, and because he doesn't even feel nice to live in between four walls. And now yeah, it's just a peculiar person, and he has a hard time. And he actually literally one day, because he lives on the streets, woke up because he was yeah, someone beat him, like pretty much. He had his jaw was broken. He sent me pictures. We don't really live close, so he just sent me stuff on the phone, and I was like, oh shit. I mean, I was already pretty scared, and but then I was very scared, and he still, yeah, lives outside. Um, but anyway, it's just yeah, just the feeling sometimes, I guess, because I also grew up as a bit of a misfit, a little bit, right? Sometimes, I mean, it's different being an artist and being um, a bit out of the ordinary. It's a whole different vibe than being out of the ordinary and not being an artist. So,
absolutely.
I don't know. It was definitely, um, yeah, yeah. So I can connect to it in one way or another. But what he has is pretty extreme, and I just wished for him that he has a good new tomorrow.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
I mean, being an artist, it's not just creating, but I think being an artist is very self-destructive in a lot of aspects as well.
Yeah, it can be. I know someone that yeah, that I grew up with. Also, I was a bit older, but I just loved what he did as an artist, and he actually stopped because it was not good for him psychologically anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can be self-destructive. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to use like the drug reference, but it's like artists can become victims of their own product in a way. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I saw this happen with someone, which I'm very sad about because the art was awesome. But yeah, it can happen, and
yeah,
then it's better, of course, to put your health first. Anyway, yeah.
yeah, and almost, I've been guilty of it too, but it just seems like it's almost like such a cruel nature that we put like tortured artists on such a pedestal in a way.
Yeah.
Like,
It's well, yeah, it is. It is. I think in a way true. I mean, yeah, there are artists. I guess it's a way of coping with things, right? So I was also thinking it's almost maybe a way of coping, to torture other people. Maybe Elizabeth Bathory did it to cope with her own things. I mean, I'm not saying it's a good thing,
Yeah,
but I was wondering about it. Let's just say that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean,
Anyway,
yeah.
that's a whole different thing again. But yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the
Uh,
tortured artist part.
well, no, just because I was having a discussion about this, and I heard this discussed on I think it was Doc Coyle's podcast, where like, is there a difference between like a suffering artist or somebody who
Mm,
just suffered and happened to make art in a way? Like, I feel like they're almost two differences in a way.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I think I think almost every artist needs to have some restlessness, because if you're not restless, if you don't feel like you have to do something, there won't be any art. So I think it's kind of um, you can either have this like in a healthy way, or you can have it in a bad way to cope with stuff. But I think it's part of it. Yeah.
yeah. I met somebody too who like had a good life. You know, he wasn't living in poverty. He wasn't, he had a decent life, but he enjoyed making art. And he thought in order for him to be successful, he like had to suffer in some ways. So he like purposely would drink and do drugs and like thinking that that was helping the art in a way when really it was just destroying him and destroying his art at the same time.
Yeah, it can also yeah, negatively. I mean, I heard indeed stories of people that like to write with drugs because it brings you in a different state of mind. And yeah, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I also feel the negative side effects too much. So I tried a few things, but I was like, okay,
Yeah.
nah. But yeah, I mean, I can be creative without it, but I guess I don't know if people think they need it or they actually need it. I mean, yeah, you can't tell me you never been creative before you started using anything. I mean, maybe you've been. I don't know. People also change. It's hard to say. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wouldn't be in favor of that anyway. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's. I guess I get it a little bit because um yeah, you always hear stories like, if there's a breakup or something, then people write a song about it. Or if there's a love story going on, then I mean, to be honest, I just read this in the airplane, and it's from Pablo Picasso. Apparently, he has phases in his life, and every phase of his artist life was connected to a relationship he had with a woman, which is kind of crazy to me. I didn't realize that until I read it. But yeah, so it's, yeah, also stuff that happens. So I guess it's another kind of drug, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I studied art history, and I think that's kind of blown out of proportion in a way because Picasso was the
Okay.
most prolific artist in the world. He made and paintings,
Or,
just paintings alone. The record was I think 13,500 paintings. So like,
okay.
I don't buy for a second. There's no way in
So
hell.
you don't buy that. Okay, okay. Yeah,
I,
they really connected it to the relationships in that story. So I was like, okay.
if he had,
But it's yeah, I don't know if it's true because I don't know about it as much as you do probably. But maybe the periods, yeah,
yeah,
they really connected the periods to the relationship. But
yeah.
you don't think, okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if he had 13,500 girlfriends, then I'm mad at my art history teacher for not teaching me more about that. But like, so,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, but that's a fun. Maybe you should try it and see if there's a connection, because at least you know more information than I do. So that's kind of fun to look into.
yeah,
But uh, but maybe that's another thing. Maybe just journalists want to see those connections between being tortured and making the art. I don't know if that's the case. For me, it's really hard to pinpoint, to be honest. For me, it's just fun and yeah, escapism and mostly having fun. I mean, if it wasn't fun, I wouldn't do it.
of course, yeah,
Yeah.
and when it comes to analyzing art too, if you're an overthinker, which I think 90% of artists are in a way,
Mm.
it just makes analyzing it so much more complicated. Like, I can't tell you how many interpretations people have made from looking at a painting of a bowl of fruit. It's
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, also, when you're making something creative, there's always these connections you have in your head, and there can be many, and even sometimes without realizing. And sometimes people say, oh, this means that, right? I'm like, yeah, I did think of that, but actually it means. So there's also connections and stuff. I don't know. I guess that happens when you're making something out of nothing, basically what it is, right? You're always starting on connections. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we veered way off, and I love that, by the way. So, but there's I have two more questions for you. Going back with the music, because when Burning Witches plays live, you got to bring a set list together all on the catalog. If you were to perform stuff off of Hexenhammer or the first self-titled album, would it resonate with you in a different way than if you were singing stuff off of Wings of Steel onward in a way?
Well, there's some songs that I really love, and there's some songs that I like a bit less. And if you write it yourself, then yeah, you wrote it, so you have to live with it anyway. But yeah, there's this. Yeah, to be honest, there's this typical thing that I think a lot of artists has. Like the most famous song we have is the song I don't like especially that much, but we have to play it every time. So
Yeah, that's always the
yeah.
curse, right?
Sorry?
That's always a curse, right? That like I mean I
Yeah,
could
a little bit.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah
yeah.
I don't know.
But for the rest, I'm okay. I like the old material. I like the new material.
Yeah.
So all good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how Bon Jovi's been playing like the same set list for 35 years, but or 40 years or something like that. So,
Yeah, I can't imagine.
yeah. Um
Yeah.
but when it comes to like the emotional energy that you channel into the music too, and this is kind of circling back to what we talked about earlier, and it may be a big what if question, but when you're
Mm.
reading this story and it kind of inspires you in a lyrical standpoint, does the setting in which you're exploring it also make a difference? You mentioned you were reading a book on a plane, but if you were reading it in another setting, or if you were exploring this concept in a different circumstance in life, do you think that would alter how the lyrical process would be, or maybe alter even you being inspired by it to begin with?
I was totally sorry. I was totally zoned out. Can you repeat it one more time?
No, no. Depending on like the circumstance in which you're exploring these different concepts, do you think that could
Mhm.
alter how you would write about it
Yeah.
if you were reading it in a different
Yeah,
setting?
definitely.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. Because I think I used to write more depressed songs because like a few years ago, I think I was, myself a bit in a more difficult time. I think my lyrics were more depressing. I mean, now I write about crazy things, but I don't think they're necessarily depressive, except for Tomorrow, which is a bit of a special song because there it's like a very emotionally heavy song. But then I try to also see the positive part. Like I hope it's going to be positive anyway. But yeah, I think it definitely influences me a lot. Yeah.
Yep. So before we go, finally, I want to thank you so much for your time today and for such an awesome conversation. Is there just anything else with the Dark Tower and Burning Witches you would like to promote in terms of upcoming tours, or what else we could be expecting, if you're allowed to say at this time, of course? And please tell me that a U.S. tour is somewhat in that.
Yeah, we're really hoping, fingers crossed, for the West Coast because we've been to the East Coast last year, so we hope the West Coast now. We're going back to Mexico with one festival, so hopefully we can do a bit more there in the area. And yeah, we do have some things planned. I can't really say too much, I think, but yeah, we have some things now planned for Europe, some little tours. And yeah, for now we just have the release shows. So tomorrow is Zurich in Z7, and then the week after we go to Belgium and Germany. They have festival season starts, so Wacken is in their rock hearts. Leyenda's the rock in Spain, so there are cool festivals coming up. Also in Austria, France, in France. Um, and what else? Oh yeah, Norway. We have a cruise. That's kind of cool.
Oh, hell yeah.
Um, yeah, so there's enough coming. But the tours they will be announced a bit later. But they're really cool. I'm looking forward to them. So go keep an eye on it. Yeah.
Look forward. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Great to talk to you. I remember interviewing. I interviewed Lala right before lockdown happened, like maybe like a week or two
Oh.
over the phone. So we were doing the interview completely uncertain and everything like that. We were like, any
Yeah,
tour and
because it was kind of in the air. Something
yeah,
was
well,
happening, right?
yeah. I
Yeah.
asked, so any tours you'd like to promote, and we were like, maybe we shouldn't get into that right now. So, but
Yeah.
thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Burning Witches. Be sure to check out their brand new album, The Dark Tower. It is absolutely awesome. We will see you next time on Heavy New York. Thank you so
See you next
much.
time.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Yeah.